Good morning and welcome to the Iconic Production channel. I am JM and this is Behind the Screen, a show where I just sit and chat for about the time it takes me to get through a cup of coffee, and we talk about game design, role-playing games, gaming news, board game and role-playing game reviews, and we just sort of talk through these things. I interact with the chat. It's a great time. So welcome to everyone. Today we are talking about another one of the monsters in my Jackals campaign, a creature known as the Lukoraji, or the Wolf Child. And so we've talked a lot about this idea of how one of the themes of Ekiazaru, the underground mansion of the Han that is inspired by Moria and Kilagius and sort of the great lost stronghold of an ancient race that has fallen into decay and being cursed, that it's set in this area known as the Valley of Troicus. And in the upcoming Jackals book, Traveler on the War Road, I relate one of the myths of the Melkoni people that relates to the Valley of Troicus, and we'll get to that in a second. But one of the themes that is kind of emerging from this development of the mega dungeon is the idea of transgressive consumption. Hello, Professor Nick. It's good to see you. Hello to my wonderful producer JD as well. So this idea of transgressive consumption, what does that mean? I realize that I throw that term around and we're just like, I assume everyone is on the same page, and I've never actually defined it. Good morning, Padre, as well. So my thought of transgressive consumption is there is this idea in the ancient world that there were some things that were not to be consumed. There were right ways to do things, and there were wrong ways to do things. This goes all the way back to proper sacrifices. If you look at the Genesis story, you have Cain and Abel. You have the proper way to offer sacrifices of incense when you get into like the sons of Aaron. You get into all sorts of hospitality rules in the Greek myths. You get into certain codes under the Hittite law code and under the Hammurabi law code of things that you were not allowed to do. And there are reasons for this. There's this idea that some things are not just wrong, but they transgress not just the laws of the world, but also our interpersonal relationships. Yeah, taboo codes in other cultures. Great point, Padre. And so the idea here is that there are, throughout the world, there are these codes around what it is okay to eat and what it is not okay to eat. And so we developed the Kashaptu, this Rathic, this spirit that consumes the essence of people who violate its space. And today we're going to go into the Lukoraji, which are these descendants of a cursed hero from the Melkoni myth cycle. And yes, this is cursed wolves. And so I thought for our first design episode, I would relate the story of Ajax and Sinan, which, as it will appear in the Travelers on the War Road book that is coming out later this year for Jackals, and establish what is the transgressive consumption about them and how is that going to factor into our design. So over the month of March, we're going to design another monster for Jackals, and once we have those two monsters developed, we may do a third one. I think I need to do the Hollow Children. But after that, we're going to get into developing the Valley of Troicus. We're going to get into developing Ekiazaru. And as always, I welcome interaction and discussion on these things. So I figured we would, as JD said, we would get into story time. So, if you are familiar with Jackals, you know that one of the Melkoni cults in the main book is the Cult of Lycos. And Lycos is the kind of the founder of Ryla. He is the descendant of Ryla, some would refer to her as like the goddess of war and passion. Some would refer to her as the steward of law. If you look at Greek culture, her analog is far more um, Athena as opposed to Ares. And if you look at the Babylonian myths, and my brain just died, there's a Babylonian war goddess who is also the goddess of love. And so you have these kind of interacting components here. Rook, as always, good to see you, buddy, and thank you so much for the generosity. So Lycos comes to the Zaharets. He engages in 7 great trials, and basically in his death, he ends the threat of this the daughters of Sinan, the Cyclops that whose Get were trying to destroy the city of Qaraji. Yes, it is. Lycos with a C is definitely a search engine from the 90s, if you remember that. I was reminded of that in was watching something this week. Right, there's Hathor, and then it's going to come to me eventually. But also in the Canaanite cycle, Anat is sort of the same idea that the goddess of war and love are just, she's the goddess of passion, and those passions lead down one of 2 roads. So he did these 7 great deeds, defeated the daughters of Sinan, and Lycos is elevated to the courts of Eraton as one of the honored heroes. So, who is Sinan, and why is this important? So, Sinan is one of the chthonic cults, and Sinan is a Cyclopes, or a Cyclops. And so, much like the Greek myths, you have the initial gods that arrive, the Titans. They are, the giants. They rebel against the order of the world. They set up their own petty kingdoms. They enact in brutal domination and tyranny. And so then Eraton and his family arise to stop the Titans. There's the big Gigantomachy, which is the war against the giants, and they are cast down into Hecate's realm. Although some of the lesser giants escaped, Sinan is one of these people. And Sinan was known for his cruelty, his cunning, and his sort of defiance of the natural order. And so Ajax, one of these heroes of renown, apologies for bumping the mic, is chosen by Eraton to go and finish off Sinan. He is raised up. He said, "This is your job." The oracles say, "Hey, you're supposed to go. You're supposed to hunt down Sinan and destroy this, right?" Because and we talked a little bit about this. I had the joy of being interviewed by Arlen Walker over at the Live from Pelham's Wasteland YouTube channel, and we talked about Glorantha, we talked about Arthur, and we talked a lot about this idea of that in the Semitic traditions, the Western Semitic traditions, of which Greek is sort of the last Semitic culture to arise and kind of transition into the first Western culture. But the idea is that the heroes, their job was to go out and finish the work of the gods by killing the remnants of chaos. And so this is what Ajax is called to do, and he has his great spear, Karanastali, and Karanastali is actually forged by Cyclopes, who have remained loyal. They switched sides during the Gigantomachy, and they forged like Eraton's thunderbolts, and they forged Ryla's armor. And so he is sent out to go destroy this Cyclops, Sinan, Ajax is. And there's some poetry. They're from a longer cycle, but I just put the parts that are relevant into the book. The oracle says, "Send Ajax to stand against the earth, his spear to cleave the wheat. Beware the giant's cunning more, and the doom within its meat." Oracles are one of those things where they only make sense sort of after the fact. Like there's this great one in Herodotus where a Greek king goes to see if he will win this battle, And the oracle says, hey, if you go to fight this battle, it will lead to the destruction of a kingdom. And the king interprets that he will crush his enemies and know he is wiped out and his people are overrun. And so kind of after the fact, you figure this out. So Ajax goes out. Sinan conjures up a storm. His ship is wrecked. As his men try to fix the ship, Ajax catches a glimpse of Sinan, and the two of them go running through the valley of Troicus. And for 40 days did Sinan kind of avoid his pursuer. So Ajax is sort of part divine and is able to run down Sinan to his home. And when he gets there, he finds Sinan welcomes him in. And wary does Ajax enter the home of Sinan, because one of the big things in ancient culture were the laws of hospitality, and you don't violate the laws of hospitality. So they spoke all night because Ajax was known as a peacemaker. He was always trying to resolve things with words before his spear. And so he spends all night talking with Sinan, and 3 times did Ajax reject these offers of hospitality, and 4 times did Sinan offer them, and finally Ajax, hungry and tired, accepts this wine from Sinan, and in doing so accepts basically Xenia, the right of hospitality. And he stays longer, and as the sun is rising, he is offered stew, and he's 40 days without food, has been running for this whole time, chasing down Sinan, has been taking in strong wine, and he eats this stew with Sinan. And as he finishes the stew, Sinan sort of cries out, "Cursed are you by him who rules of all heaven and the earth." Oh, no, sorry. "Cursed are you by him who rules all of earth and heaven, for by his laws all must die who taste the flesh of men." That's when Ajax discovers that the meat of the stew that he was gifted, Sinan had brutally murdered Ajax's family and offered him a stew of his own familial meat. And so he kills Sinan in a fit of rage, or he attacks Sinan in a fit of rage. There's different myths. The Chthonic cults say that Sinan survived. The Melkoni cults say, hey, you are too, Sinan was killed, it's fine. So he cries out to heaven, and basically as he's struck, Sinan says, if Eratons is just and rules all of earth and heaven, thrice cursed be Ajax for his deeds, cursed be he above all men. For in my home he drew his spear and cast a mortal wound, breaking laws of God and men and sealing mortals' doom. And so basically, Sinan, knowing that Ajax was going to kill him, or at least mortally wound him, lures him into this trap where he violates the oracle's law, which said, don't engage with Sinan, kill him. He violates the laws of hospitality by attempting to murder or murdering his host, and he violates the laws of consumption and the taboo of eating not just human flesh, but eating like such familial flesh. And Thunderbolt cracks the sky, and Ajax is cursed by Eraton. Now, one of his children escapes this curse, is sequestered away, and Lycos comes from Ajax's line, ending sort of the threat of Sinan-ish. There's some Jackal adventures available on the Osprey Games website for free that include this resurgence of the cult of Sinan. But anyway, Ajax is cursed into becoming this large wolf, not a wolf man in kind of the modern sense, but he was a man. He retains the cunning, but now he has become almost like a Wendigo spirit in the fact that he is a large wolf that then is driven to continually consume the flesh of men. And he has offspring, and his offspring come to reside in the valley of Troicus, which is where Sinan's home was, and that is where we get the Lukoraji. These I don't want to call them dire wolves because that's not exactly what they are. They're sort of a cross between the idea of a dire wolf in your traditional F20 or Germanic mythology, the Wendigo, uh, the idea that by consuming the flesh of humans, you are somehow cursed. You gain powers, but you lose your humanity. And then also a little bit of the more Tolkien-esque view of werewolves. If you are familiar with the Silmarillion, you know that werewolves and vampires are actually spirits that inhabit bodies. They are not sort of a taxonomy of their own. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Lukoraji. So today we're going to design some. We're going to do what we did with the Kashaptu, and today we're going to spend some time kind of developing the themes. So how does one become a Lukoraji? Well, in general, it is a curse that is bestowed upon those in the Valley of Troicus or in Melkone lands who, are cannibals. It leads to a growing need for more flesh. And if one gives into it, there are some benefits at the start. Stronger, faster, I won't say better because we don't have the technology, but right, there's some initial benefits, right? Especially in a warrior culture, you grow stronger, faster, tougher, and then you get to this point where you start the transformation into the Lukoraji. Now, what's interesting is if you go back and look at the first Olympics, if I'm remembering my mythology correctly, the winner of the first Olympics was accused of eating babies to gain strength and was also cursed. So, the controversy about Olympic athletes taking performance enhancing drugs goes all the way back to the original Olympics. So then during we're not gonna tie it to the full moon. I like the idea of it being when Aura, the moon of purity, is new. So when that happens, that's when the transformation takes hold. So when Aura, the moon of purity, is absent, and so I think what we're going to want to do is, like, these creatures, once you transform, it is going to, you don't move back and forth, right? Once you have moved down this transgressive path, that is where you're at. So we're going to make large wolves. I think they should have some immunity to bronze. I think that's something that we need to have, that kind of also, again, going back and leading into the Germanic mythology of the shape-shifting berserkers being immune to iron weapons. There is there's a myth or a story in the sagas where a guy was immune to all weapons and ended up the hero had to rip his throat out with his teeth because teeth were not covered under the curse. Hey, Phantom, good to see you. I want to say they're immune to non-magical bronze. And then is there anything else that we want to cover? Anything that we've talked about here in the overview of the myth of Ajax, or kind of where we're coming from, where you're like, Jam, I don't think you're missing something here. Is there a way to end the curse? That's another good idea. I don't think it would be anything short of a ritual. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. We've got where they came from. We've got the fact that it's a curse. I do sort of like that they are unaging as well. That when you are struck with this curse, you have taken this step along the path so far away from the stewards and the gods of Melkone that you are essentially kind of possessed by a Rathic, and there's this blending of spirit and flesh, and so you are left permanently tormented in this cursed form until a hero were to put you down. Spirit. Let's call it demonosis, because I like that term from a podcast that I enjoy. All right, so we have the Lukoraji. I've given you the overview and the introduction on this, and we've got kind of our theme document. So when we come back next Tuesday, we are going to build the building blocks of this creature. If you are a member of our Patreon, you can vote on what the topic for Thursday is. It will either be a game review or it will be a discussion about a game theory. I'm going to post the poll in our Discord channel today. So if you guys want to join in that discussion, please tune in on Thursday. We're going to have another great chat and interaction. And we're also going to do a review of some game or some design theory or topic. And hopefully we'll get some good interaction in the chat on that one. Please check out, if you want to become a patron of Iconic Production, you can definitely check us out at patreon.com/Iconic Production. You can go over to the YouTube channel and catch all of the backlog of Behind the Screen, as well as exploring Glorantha and the Grand Campaign. And actually, yesterday I did a impromptu episode of Zane Talks Torg. My son Zane loves the Torg Eternity role-playing game, and we got our Orosh box in, which is the Horror Cosm. Maybe we'll do a review of Torg. That'll be one of the ones I toss in on the poll. But we did a unboxing video, and his excitement was palpable. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, we'll be back on Thursday. If you like what we do, please consider following us here on Twitch, subscribing here or on YouTube, and hitting the like button on the videos so that we can tell YouTube's algorithm that, hey, this is content that other people might enjoy as well. And always, please leave a comment on the YouTube channel. I try to respond to everyone, and I really enjoy these little short sessions that we do where we talk about gaming and other fun matters about role-playing games and game design. So I am JM. This is the Iconic Production channel, and we will be back on Thursday with more Behind the Screen. Oh, I forgot to mention, this will be the first month on the third Sunday of the month. If you are available at Sunday evening, I will get the time correct, or I will have JD put it in the chat. We're going to be doing our first launch episode of Season 6 of the Iconic Podcast. Now, normally the Iconic Podcast talks about 13th Age, but for Season 6, we're going to be talking about Gumshoe, which is a role-playing game that was built for the ground up to be focused on investigation. So the third Sunday of this month, we're going to be going over kind of a general overview of what Gumshoe is on the 20th. So if you have not, if you don't know anything about Gumshoe, but you want to hear about it, it forms the basis of a ton of great games from Pelgrane Press. We're going to cover 3 of them this season. We're going to look at Trail of Cthulhu, which is a Cthulhu investigatory game. We're going to cover Night's Black Agents, which is a burned spy versus vampires game that is also just delightful. And then we'll wrap it out with Swords of the Serpentine, which is sort of a sword and sorcery, Lankmar Thieves World style game. So, until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I have been JM. I am JM, and this has been Behind the Screen, and we will be back next Thursday. Have a good one.